Bienvenido al Cafecito del Día, brought to you by the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement. Our conversations are inspired by the moments of togetherness that nuestra comunidad shares over un cafecito.
Bienvenidos, soy Carmen Rodríguez. Today, we turn our attention to Chicago and the surrounding suburbs, areas that have recently faced a painful wave of raids and intimidation targeting immigrant workers. In the face of this injustice, something powerful has emerged. Community members, union leaders, and immigrant rights advocates have stepped forward with courage and unity. In this new episode of El Cafecito del Día, we will explore how these leaders and community members are responding, how solidarity is being built across neighborhoods and unions, and how the fight for the due process, dignity, and workers' protections is stronger than ever, even in the most challenging moments. Acompáñenos. Hoy nos acompaña Gilma Enrique, Executive Director of Chicago Jobs with Justice and Chicago Metro LCLAA chapter member. Bienvenida, Jill, al Cafecito del Día.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To start our conversation, can you describe how Chicago's local communities and surrounding suburbs have been responding to the recent race of raids targeting immigrant workers, and what forms of grassroots resistance or solidarity have you witnessed?
Amongst this terror and horror that we're all experiencing and have experienced, the one beautiful thing that has come out of it is the solidarity amongst communities, both within the city of Chicago and outside of it in the suburbs. We're all working together to make sure that our communities are safe in ways that I often think about how we could be living our lives every day within community with each other, often most of the time not knowing who we are, not knowing our real names, but showing up for each other regardless. And that's for rapid response when there is an active ICE sighting or active ICE action. That's through mutual aid efforts. It's through training each other and making sure that everybody understands the situation that we're in and understands our rights and how to protect each other. It's been a beautiful moment of solidarity to be a part of and to witness.
In this moment of fear, how are unions stepping in to protect immigrant workers from retaliation or exploitations, and what strategies are labor leaders using to advocate for their safety and rights?
This isn't going to be something new for your listeners, but immigration issues aren't something that's new to the labor movement. It's something that we've had to work through when we were going through lots of LCLAA cases. It's something that has been an issue within the workplace forever, with bad bosses retaliating or threatening retaliation over immigration issues. So there are tools that were in place, and there was a consciousness in place within the labor movement and within unions before this Midway Blitz happened. So there was a level of preparation that the labor community and the labor movement was somewhat ready for. I don't know that anyone was ready for what we saw, but it was something that we were actively preparing for. The AFL-CIO had their training materials out, and they were distributing those to the CLCs across the country. And of course, every CLC is different, but I can speak for about our Chicago Federation of Labor, which our Secretary Treasurer, Don Villar, was out constantly giving trainings and offering those materials to any local that would listen. And they were doing training sessions all over, not only Chicago, but over the suburbs and anywhere that there could be an audience, and having those materials offered everywhere. Individual unions were doing what their capacity allowed, and some beautiful things were happening, like for instance out of CTU, the Chicago Teachers Union, where they were really stepping up, and still do, stepping up to protect immigrant workers and protect students and protect families and parents and protect their staff against what was coming at us. They were doing things like practicing bargaining for the common good and making sure that within their collective bargaining agreements, there were protections for folks. And from what I can tell, their staff, their union members, their CTU members were prepared and ready for what would happen if ICE showed up at their door. And other unions like SEIU, HCII, they brought us in, Chicago Jobs Justice, to do a lot of trainings. And we've trained hundreds of home healthcare workers and daycare workers as well. So, depending on the level of engagement of each local, there was a lot going on. And I think that there still is a lot more room for a lot more to be done.
So solidarity and unity are crucial at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Solidarity and unity are crucial at this moment amongst public unions and the private unions, like the trades unions and the public unions. Everybody needs to be working together. And what we saw in Chicago, like for instance, on May Day and on Labor Day, was demonstrations, protests, marches, whatever you want to call it, of unions across sectors coming together to state loudly and outwardly to anybody that was paying attention that what was happening here in Chicago in the Chicagoland area was not okay with us, and that we weren't going to stand by and just let it happen.
Alongside labor efforts, how are immigrants' rights organizations and legal advocates mobilizing to provide support, education, and protection for those affected by the raids?
They have mobilized in the most incredibly impactful way. There's an organization in Illinois called ICER, which I'm sure you've heard of, and an OCAD. And previous to this moment, obviously we talked about ICER and OCAD a lot within the labor movement and within the activist movement. And they are our go-to folks when it came to immigration issues and anything around immigration. But I live a little bit further north, and I hadn't heard this many people talking about ICER and OCAD before. I hadn't heard this many people talking about another organization called Latino Union, who works primarily with day laborers. I had not heard about them talked about as much. And now, within like signal chats amongst community members, those are commonplace names. Everyone mentions ICER, everyone mentions OCAD, everyone mentions Latino Union. They have shown up in this moment for our community in a way that is, I don't know how anybody after this is over, fingers crossed this ends, could forget them. They've been critical. They've supplied us with all of the know your rights information that we need. We seek their guidance in doing anything immigration related in any sort of way. They are there to answer calls when we see ICE in our neighborhoods and we see ICE actions. We follow their lead lockstep every time. And legal advocates, I don't know where we would be without them at this point either. Those two together have given us all, have empowered us all with the knowledge that we need to be able to combat this attack on a legal level. And it's just incredible. The attorneys who show up to defend people and let people know that they have rights when they're protesting is unbelievable. And the work that they've done to defend folks who have been detained or are being threatened with detainment, it's an incredible thing.
How are families, workplaces, neighborhoods, and communities affected by these waves of persecutions against immigrants?
In every single way you can possibly imagine, spiritually, financially, mentally, physically. This may have been a quote unquote law enforcement project or attack, but there is no way that these attacks by Border Patrol and ICE haven't affected people in every single way possible. We have folks who have been physically harmed, who are still detained, who have been deported or waiting on deportation, who have been deported within the country. And some of these folks are the breadwinners of their families. And so we have families that don't have the capacity to pay rent anymore or buy food, diapers, provide for their families, children who aren't going to school anymore, families that are afraid to leave their houses. It's impacted folks in ways that I could never even have imagined. Just as like a person who has responded to rapid response calls, the sounds of whistles hits different now. And the sounds of honking hits different now. The way that we even walk outside and experience the world is completely different. We can't look at certain types of cars the same anymore. There's a level of paranoia that's absolutely valid and fear that's going to be with us and be with the impacted folks for an incredibly long time.
A federal judge recently ordered the release of hundreds of people arrested in the Operation Midway Blitz immigration sweep around Chicago, noting that many arrests violated an existing consent decree. How does the ruling change the landscape of enforcement of workers' protection in the region, and what does it mean for community and legal strategies moving forward?
I want to point out that that consent decrees in Chicago are not a new thing. One of the things that we've talked a lot about when it comes to the enforcement of Midway Blitz is that we're experiencing this horrific event, but the tactics that they're using on immigrants, immigrant workers, are things that they tested on the Black community first. And it's the same with the consent decree. No-knock warrants have resulted in people being killed, people being terrorized. And the same is true here. Picking folks up on the way to work, in their cars. And it's not just picking them up, it's brutally attacking them, surrounding them, horrible uses of force with no warrant. And in some cases, I read that there were officers who had blank warrants and they just filled them out later. And some that used ChatGPT to fill out the information that they needed. These are things that have been tested on the Black community and now are being implemented on the immigrant community. So I'd like to say that there'll be precedent for things to change, and I hope that there are precedent for things to change. But the reality is, too, that there's an administrative stay right now. And so those detainees are still detained. So I really don't know what it could mean for legal strategies moving forward. I hope that it means that there's more ability for folks to recoup the bond money and to recoup damages. But law enforcement has shown us that, and especially now, that any sort of decree, that any sort of legal procedure means nothing to them. So it's more of like a, what can we do after?
Talking about what can we do after, what concrete actions can take LCLAA members, union members, allies who are listening today to support the work of local organizations and communities on the front lines in Chicago?
The very first thing that LCLAA members and union members need to do is look within their own locals. Look at the engagement that they currently have within their own membership and see what they can do to increase that. See what they can do to build trust amongst their members, to build relationships among their members, and to see what resources that they're offering. I know that there are some locals that have immigration attorneys and some that don't. If you didn't have one during this first round of the Midway Blitz, make sure you get some. Get one. Put one on retainer. Do something in order to protect your people in that way. Open up your union halls. Those are safe spaces for workers, for their families. Open them up to folks. Make it explicitly clear that you have the backs of your members. And challenge language. The thing about the labor movement is that it's filled with individuals. It's filled with people with different and varying degrees of understanding and compassion towards this current moment. This is an opportunity for labor leaders within their locals and just in general to be bold with more than just their words, to be bold with their actions and show people, whether they're union or not, that what's happening right now is not how we operate. So they can start there by really reinforcing within their own locals that these are your rights and we are going to protect them in these ways. They can look at their budgets. How much money are we spending on political candidates versus organizers? Beef up your organizing. That's so important. We need more organizers and more funding for organizers, not just to get the word out about what their rights are, but we need folks that are going to be actively out there protecting work sites. And on top of that, what I've seen and what we've all seen is ICE and Border Patrol attacking work sites, attacking workers. And many of these workers are not formally part of a union yet. So there's an opportunity there to organize those folks, to bring them in, to offer that protection. We need our union members and our union leaders to really understand the power that we have. There are so many more workers, so many more unionized and non-unionized workers out there than there are of these weirdos running around terrorizing us. And once we all realize that and we can all get on the same page that we're here to protect each other, regardless of your trade, regardless of your union, regardless of anything, then that's just a huge amount of power. And what we've seen in folks connecting from Portland to Chicago to Charlotte, sharing resources, understanding what we're up against and being there for each other, unconditionally being there for each other, and sharing our knowledge, sharing everything we possibly can about what this next city that they're going to should expect. The labor union or the labor movement needs to be doing exactly the same thing, being there for each other, regardless of where you're from and regardless of your background. Because the only thing we have in this is each other, is community. That's it. Because these guys out here, they don't care about laws. They don't care about legal enforcement measures. They don't care about humanity, even a little bit. And at this moment is proving anything, it's that the only thing that is going to save us is our connection to community and each other. Some of these folks that are being detained, like I said, are the breadwinners of their families. And some of them are members of unions as well. And what the families need is help. They need help with the diapers, like I said, help with the groceries, help getting the kids to school, just wrap around services. And if your local doesn't offer those things, then talk to a community organization, because they probably do, and connect them, be there for them, shelter them when something like this happens.
Before we finish our conversation, what will be your message for the immigrant community and for immigrant workers?
I can't pretend to understand how lonely it feels. I have a huge privilege in being pretty safe at the moment. My family, not so much. There are hundreds, if not thousands of folks that are out in the community that you may never know, and you may never know your real name, but they're there waiting to pick up groceries for you and drop them off, trying to figure out a way to make sure that you have the funds that you need to pay your rent. We can never repair the mental and spiritual damage that's been done, but your community is here for you, and that's not going to change.
Thank you so much, Jill, for being with us in este Cafecito del Día. Thank you for all the work that you've done and you continue doing for the immigrant community and the working families.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and hopefully we don't have to talk about this because it's over.
As we close today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude to the community leaders, union leaders, and union members who have been on the front lines in Chicago. Your courage, your presence, and your unwavering commitment to working families have sent a clear message. We will not stand by while our communities are attacked. To all LCLAA members and all union siblings listening this episode, this is the moment to stay strong, stay united, and stay active. Our fight continues, not just for immigrant workers, but for every worker's fundamental right to safe, dignity, and due process. When any workers is targeted, threatened, or denied their rights, the labor movement must rise as one. Let us move forward together with purpose and solidarity. Let us refuse division and fear, and let us continue building a moment where every worker, regardless of immigration status, is protected, respected, and empowered. Nos escuchamos en el próximo Cafecito del Día.
El Cafecito del Día is part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network